Hold up. Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step. I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bet.
Welcome back, y'all. This is the Double M Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jesus Dinero, here with my co-host,
Puma El Gato.
What do we got going on tonight, my man?
The year 2026 will be the last year of Suga Sean O'Malley's career. Let's talk about it.
So that's not us predicting anything. Suga Sean has said it himself on a recent interview he did. And listen, man, I'll be honest with you. I've never been Suga Sean's biggest fan. But one thing that I will say about Suga Sean that I admire a lot is the way that he does introspection. I believe greatly that he's very, very honest with himself. Different things that he's done. For example, one time he said, that he'd be willing to go up and fight Ilya, and he would dominate Ilya, and then after Ilya was dominating a couple different fighters, Suga Sean said, holy crap, I'm glad he didn't take me up on that offer because I would have gotten smoked. There's a number of different fighters where Suga Sean has been very honest about, look, listen, they probably beat my ass if I fought that guy. So I really dig when a fighter has that sort of realistic expectations in his own mind, because I feel like they're very honest about the circumstances. So I dig that. As far as a lot of the other stuff, I didn't love a lot of the other antics that Suga Sean was doing. And the reason being, listen, I like a showman. I like a showman fighter. I like a fighter to be very braggadocious. If he's that guy, I dig it. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love to see it. And I think it builds up the fight, adds to it that much more. The problem is that Suga Sean, for a very long time, he was knocking people out in spectacular fashion, but they were nobodies. All due respect. A lot of the fighters that he did beat, it was questionable if he did beat them, the Yawns and such. After he lost to Chito Vera in the first fight, he was still going around saying he was undefeated. All these types of things, right? Again, those are things of the opposite. Like I said a second ago, I like a fighter who's very realistic with his introspection. On those things, he wasn't very realistic about the circumstances. He was acting like he was still that guy, like he had beat them, he was so on and so forth. So that I didn't dig. I don't like a fighter that knows he's lying. It's one thing if you truly believe it. I know Suga Sean didn't truly believe it because, again, he has a very honest mindset when it comes to his reality, when it comes to other fighters. So, as far as Suga Sean potentially retiring in 2026, listen, I get it. You know, up until very recently, since Merab lost to Yan, Suga Sean had gotten 2 chances to bite that apple, and each time he did worse. In the first fight, he lost to Merab. We all clearly saw it. When he got a second chance at the bite at the apple, even after that loss, he did even worse the second time. So as long as Merab was champion, there was never going to really be a scenario where Suga Sean was going to be champion, so long as Merab was champion. Now, obviously, Merab lost to Peter Yan very recently, a little bit over a month ago. And because of that, I think Suga Sean is being very realistic about his chances, whether he moves up in weight or whether he continues in his division. They're slim. Will he always be somewhere in the top 10? I'm sure he probably will be. I don't believe the division is so deep that he can just say, I'm going to be number 1 and be champion and be able to knock out all these different people. So he's going to have a very limited range of fighters he's going to be able to fight. And does it really matter? And I say this with all due respect. It's a very similar scenario to Dustin Poirier. If you're always number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, but you just can't capture the title, what's left to do? Are you just going to keep fighting the same people over and over? How marketable is that when you can say, well, I beat everybody else, I just can't beat the champion? So I think that's playing in Suga Sean's mind. Plus, on top of that, Suga Sean makes a decent amount of money outside of the ring. He's got his podcast with a couple of his buddies. He does a lot of different things with different people when he goes on their podcast and such. So I'm sure he's comfortable with the money that he's making. I'm sure, hey, maybe he even sees more money coming from the streaming side. I mean, we all know people like Aiden Ross and all those other guys make a lot more money from the streaming side of things than a lot of the professional fighters. So maybe he wants to go on a path down that way to see if maybe he can make that a real thing. Which I think Suga Sean would do great. He's very bombastic. He's very loud with a lot of his things, but at the same time, he's very honest. So I think he'd do great in the streaming aspect of it. So I believe that's what he's thinking. I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't tell you. I don't know the man. But given the reality of the circumstances and given how Suga Sean's mind works, and he's very realistic about his expectations on himself, that's why I believe he's saying that this is going to be his last year. Now, like a lot of other fighters, I think what's going to happen is he's going to quit for some time, maybe a year, maybe two. But I think the lust, the want to come back and just be that glorious figure that he was before, I think is going to kick in. He's still young enough to where he can make that happen. So I feel like because of those things, it's going to be a circumstance like, oh, I'm retired, and then he's going to come back a short time later. But listen, we never know. Either way, I think it is a little bit of a loss, if I'm being honest with you, for his division. I think it is a little bit of a loss for UFC because whether you liked him or not, before he started losing to Merab, he was a very marketable guy. But again, now, how marketable are you if you can beat everybody except the champion? So we'll see what happens, man. Either way, whether he decides to stay fighting or whether he decides to go off and do something else. Even though I'm not as big as fan, I will absolutely wish him the best, and I hope he cashes out as much as possible in his last couple fights if he does decide that 2026 is his final year. But what do you think about that, my man?
Listen, I've made my feelings known about Suga Sean. I'm not exactly a fan of his character, and I do think he's playing at least in character to an extent. Maybe that's his character turned out to 11, like his actual character, like his actual personality turned up to 11. Not personally a fan about that. Not a fan of his streaming. Not a fan of any of that. As a fighter, I'm kind of mixed as my my likability on Sean as a fighter. I'm personally kind of mixed on that. That being said, my feelings on Suga Sean as a fighter, or as an entity, as it were, my feelings on that, let me just throw them to the side, because at the very least, I want to at least give some flowers to Suga Sean. This man was actually dominant in the bantamweight division for the better part of at least 2 years. And again, even with the loss of Chito Vera, he kept making that claim, just like Chael Sonnen always did, about that he was always undefeated, and that the only reason that it took him out was just a leg injury that he had no control over. Again, I personally think it's still a loss, but hey man, you were able to market as best you can. You were able to fool a good amount of people that say you are actually undefeated, and look, I can't exactly sneeze on that. That's not your fault. That's everybody else's fault for not actually seeing through to that. So the fact that you're able to market on that, hey, listen, that it's not even a backhanded compliment. I actually want to applaud Suga Sean for actually doing that. And again, being as dominant as you are in a division for the better part of 2 years, again, that's not nothing to sneeze at. So at the very least, don't take this as any sort of backhanded compliment. I want to give Suga Sean his actual flowers for more than two things: his dominant reign as champion for the better part of 2 years, and two, and this is pertaining to that same podcast where he was actually saying 2026 would be was final year, is that he said his plan was first and foremost the immediate match that he has coming up against Song Yadong. And he said he was going to try and levy that into another fight, a possible crack at the championship against Peter Yan. Now, again, whether that happens if he beats Song Yadong or he loses to him, he says he's going to still try to campaign for that. But he said no matter what, win or lose, his own words, win or lose, 2026 is going to be my final year as a fighter. Which again, I'm not going to lie, it takes a decent amount of honesty and introspection for you to actually say, I might lose both fights, I might win one fight, might lose one fight, but no matter what, I'm out of this game for good come the end of the year. So at the very least, I want to apply at least some courage and honesty and introspection that comes from saying, no matter what happens, this is going to be my last year fighting. And again, given everything he's done in the sport, and again, being arguably a lot of people's introduction into the sport itself, because again, he's at least marketing himself outside the UFC, again, into his streaming. And there's a good chance that a bunch of people were introduced to UFC and by extension MMA because of Suga Sean. So don't take anything that I say against him as a backhanded compliment. He could have very well introduced people to the sport, and it was because of Suga Sean. And honestly, I can't be mad about that. I have to be honest. I can't be mad about that. He was as big an influence as he can be. And quite frankly, it would be a loss if he's gone. I may not like him as a fighter. I may not like his personality, but I have to be real. A big influence has just came and went in the UFC, and come the end of the year, we're probably not going to see anybody like that for a long while if we don't already have that already in the UFC. So I'm not going to lie. I don't like Suga Sean. But I have to be honest, it was quite a career he carved for himself in the UFC in the bantamweight division. So I want to applaud Suga Sean for his career that he carved himself out.
Fair enough, my man. Fair enough. Listen, again, either way, I do think it's going to be a loss for the UFC, whether you like him or not, whether you adore the man, whether you think he's annoying, whatever you think about the guy. It is going to be a loss for the UFC. He is quite the character. He is a decent enough fighter, obviously, to remain within the top 10. All that aside, listen, again, whether he stays or not, we want to wish him the best, whatever he decides to do. I look forward to seeing his last two fights. I personally think that if he does win his upcoming fight, I think he should campaign to get a shot at title. I personally don't think it's earned off of one fight, especially after losing as much as he's lost to Marab. But listen, you do what you got to do, especially in your retirement career. Hey, man, go out with the bang. Do everything you can to get that last little bit of fame, that last little bit of hype, that last little bit of money that you could potentially gain, and ride off into the sunset, big dog. I'm a huge advocate of fighters getting every single dime, penny, and nickel on the board when they're about to retire. And if this is a retirement end for Suga Sean, hey, bro, get that paper, brother. And with that, make sure to like, comment, hate, subscribe, DM us about the bullshit, and
Until next time, get rest and stay blessed. We'll see you in the next one.